The sky cracked open with fire as the strange ship fell from the clouds. Zalara stood on the cliff, eyes narrow. Watching the smoke rise far across the dead plains, another visitor. Another fool who thought they could survive her world. They never lasted long. No one did. Her planet was known across the stars as a death world. The kind of place where every living thing was trying to kill you. Poisoned rivers, acid rains, beasts that screamed louder than thunder. Even the plants had teeth. Zalara didn't just survive here. She ruled it. She was born under 2 blood-red moons. Raised in a cave of fire and wind, by the time she was 10, she had lost her family, her tribe, and her faith and kindness. Only strength kept her alive, and now she believed she was the only one left of her kind. The last Deathworlder. So when the alien ship crashed into her land, she didn't panic, she didn't run, she sharpened her claws and walked toward it. The wreckage was still hot, glowing with sparks and steam. A metal door hissed open, smoke poured out, and then a human walked through. He wasn't wearing heavy armor, no gas mask, no shield, just a strange suit and a calm expression. He looked around like he wasn't impressed at all. Zalara narrowed her glowing eyes, crouched low behind a jagged rock. What was this soft-skinned creature doing here? Did he want to die? She waited for him to scream. Usually, they screamed. The wind alone could strip skin from bones, but this human didn't scream. He adjusted something on his wrist and pulled out a scanner. He looked completely calm. That annoyed her. She stepped into the open, letting her long claws gleam in the dull sunlight. The human turned, slowly, when his eyes met hers. He didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't even move. He just said one word, softly. Hello. Zalara blinked. That was new. She bared her fangs, stepping closer. You're not scared of me? He smiled a little. Should I be? She growled. Low and dangerous. You don't belong here, human. This world eats things like you. He glanced around, still calm. So I've heard. Then, sky cracked again, this time with sound. A storm was forming. The red clouds swirled and thunder shook the ground. Zalara hissed. You'll die in that storm if you stay here. The human didn't move. Then take me to shelter. She should have left him. Let him be torn apart by wind and acid. But something in her chest twitched. Curiosity. Pity. She didn't know. Follow me, she growled. Turning her back. If he was weak, the storm would take him before she needed to. They ran across cracked stone, climbed over black hills, and slid down sharp cliffs. He kept up, didn't complain. Didn't fall. When the acid rain began, he activated a shield bubble from his suit. He even offered to expand it to cover her. She laughed in his face and let the acid drip off her scales. I was born in this rain, she said proudly. It cannot hurt me. He simply nodded, saying nothing more. By the time they reached her cave, the wind was screaming. Inside, it was dry and warm. Lit by glowing stones, the human looked around. Impressed. Nice place. She raised an eyebrow. For a monster's home. He shook his head. For a survivor. Zalara stared at him, confused. He didn't insult her. Didn't fear her. He talked to her like she was normal, and that felt strange. She dropped some poisoned meat into a pot and stirred it over fire. This will kill you, she said, almost like a warning, almost like a challenge. He took out a device and scanned the meat, then used something like a purifier stick, and took a bite. She leaned forward, watching, waiting. Nothing happened. He smiled. Not bad. Her claws curled slowly. Unsure what she was feeling. For the first time in years, she wasn't alone, and the one who walked into her world might be just as dangerous as her. The fire crackled between them. The scent of burning rock and bitter meat filled the air. Zalara sat cross-legged, her claws tapping against the stone floor. She didn't blink as she watched the human. He was strange, calm and still breathing, Logan. He had said his name was Logan. No long title, no tribal markings, just Logan. Simple. Like the way he moved, like the way he looked at hers if she was not a monster, but something. Familiar, Zalara had seen fear before. She had smelled it in every trespasser, invader, and bounty hunter who landed here, even before she growled. They trembled. Even before she lifted her claws, they begged. But this one, this human, looked at her like she was just another person sitting by a fire. "Why did you follow me?" she asked suddenly, her voice sharp. He poked the fire with a stick and replied, "'Cause you didn't kill me." She narrowed her eyes. "I still might," he shrugged. "Then, I'll die warm." Zalara's lips curled into something close to a smirk. She stood up slowly, letting her full height show taller than him. Broader, claws longer than his fingers. She took a step closer, her shadow swallowing him in the flickering light. "Do you understand what I am?" she asked, voice low. He looked up, unshaken. "Yes, I'm a Deathworlder," she growled. "My bones are stronger than metal. My blood melts stone. My breath kills flowers. I was made to survive where nothing else can." He looked at her face for a moment and said calmly, "Then maybe we're not so different." Those words hit her like cold wind. She tilted her head, confused. "What do you mean?" He reached into his pack and pulled out a small device. A hologram blinked to life. It showed a planet, blue and green, with swirling clouds. "Earth," he said. "My home." She looked at the image, unimpressed. "It looks soft." He nodded. "It does, but it's not. Our air burns in space. Our oceans crush steel. Our animals can kill you with a bite. Even our own kind destroy each other in wars." Zalara blinked slowly. "You live on a death world. Maybe not like yours," he replied. "But yeah, we don't live easy. We fight, we adapt, we survive," for the first time in her life. Zalara felt a strange feeling in her chest, like a quiet storm. Not fear, not rage, something else. She looked down at the fire and said softly, "I thought I was the only one." Logan said nothing. But the silence between them spoke louder than words. The storm outside had calmed, but the wind still moaned beyond the cave walls. Zala stepped back and sat again, watching him from across the fire. "How many of you are there?" she asked. "Billions," Logan said. Her eyes widened slightly. "Billions of Deathworlders." He chuckled. "Not all of us. Most are softer than me. But we're tough when we need to be." Zalara's mind spun with questions. She had believed for so long that she was alone, that her kind were extinct or were Smiths. But now, this. Human sat across from her like a mirror made of different flesh. She reached for her clawed spear resting by the wall. Logan's eyes followed her hand. Still, no fear. She picked it up slowly and pointed the tip toward his neck. His heartbeat stayed steady. "You're not afraid?" she asked again, genuinely curious now. He stared into her eyes, unblinking. "No," he said, simply. "Why?" She pressed. "Because I don't think you want to hurt me," he said. "You could have, many times. You still can. But you didn't." She pulled the spear back slowly, resting it on her shoulder. There was silence again. But not the dangerous kind. This one felt safe, strange, but safe outside. Strange lights flickered in the sky, remnants of the crash. Maybe something else. Zalara looked toward them and said, "You won't survive here long, Logan." He looked at her with a half smile. "Then I'll have to learn quickly." She stared at him for a long time, then stood and walked deeper into the cave. "Come on," she called over her shoulder. "You'll freeze, sleeping near the entrance." He stood, following her without hesitation. As they stepped into the warmth of the back chamber, she thought quietly to herself, "This human is different. He doesn't run, he doesn't scream, and maybe. He's not the weak one. Maybe I've never met anyone strong enough to stand beside me now. The fire was dying. Only soft orange embers glowed in the dark cave. Logan sat cross-legged, adjusting the settings on his wrist device. Zilara paced near the walls like a restless predator. She was watching him, not with fear, not with hate. With curiosity. Outside, the night howled with acid winds and glass storms. But deep inside this cave, two Deathworlders shared silence. Not peace, not yet. But something close to it. You eat poison, Logan said without looking up. Zilara turned, her sharp eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Yes, she answered. My kind were built to survive what others can't. Logan smiled softly. I believe that now. She stepped toward the small stash of dried meat hanging above the flame. The meat was gray and cracked, like old rock. Oh no. She sliced a piece with her claw and tossed it onto a flat stone. It kills anything not from this world. In seconds, she said calmly, then pushed the stone toward him. Logan didn't hesitate. He scanned the meat with his device and placed a small filter pod onto it. Blue light shimmered over the meat for a few seconds. Then it stopped. He picked it up, sniffed it, and took a bite. Zilara tilted her head slightly. He chewed once, twice, then smiled. Need salt, he said. She blinked, stunned. That meat had melted the face off a bounty hunter just last year. He had screamed for 8 minutes, Logan. He was asking for seasoning. You're kind, she said slowly. You're not weak. You just hide it well, Logan shrugged. We hide a lot, sometimes even from ourselves. They ate in silence for a while, the cave warm with shared heat. Zilara sat down across from him again. Setting her claws in the dirt, you said your world is like mine, she said, but your skin is soft. He nodded. And yours is like armor. Then how do you survive? She asked, truly curious now. Logan looked into the fire, his voice lower now. We survive with our minds, he said, and our hearts. We're not the fastest, not the strongest. But we adapt, we learn, we don't stop. Zilara stared at him, feeling something strange in her chest again. Not fear, not rage, something new. She didn't know the word for it, but it burned warmer than the fire between them. You said you have billions, she asked, but none came here before you. Logan looked at her, expression unreadable. This world was marked as too dangerous, he said. No one volunteered. Then why did you? She asked, eyes narrowing. Logan paused for a moment, then answered. Because I wanted to know if the stories were true about me. No, he said. About someone who survived here alone. Zilara looked away, suddenly uncomfortable. She had been alone for so long. She had stopped hoping, stopped dreaming. Only survival mattered. But now? This human was changing things. You could have died. She whispered, almost to herself. I still might, he replied. But if I do, at least I met you first. She stood quickly, walking to the back of the cave where her weapons hung. I don't trust words, she said sharply. Words lie. Logan stood too, calmly, then trust actions. He walked to the cave's edge and opened a small box from his backpack. Inside were tiny glowing seeds earth plants, adapted for harsh worlds. He knelt, dug a small patch of dirt with his hands, and planted 2 seeds, then poured a few drops of water from his canister. Zilara frowned, stepping closer. What are you doing? Planting food, he said. For you and for me. They won't grow, she said. Not in this soil. We'll see. He smiled. She stared at the little patch of dirt, the fragile seeds under the toxic air. It was foolish. It was hopeless. It was human, and something about it made her chest hurt again. You don't belong here, she whispered. Neither do you. He answered. Silence again, but this time it was soft, not sharp, like the wind before a gentle rain. or the space between two heartbeats. Later that night, when Logan had fallen asleep beside the fire, Zalara stood over him, watching. His breathing was slow, peaceful. He looked weaker than ever yet somehow. She knew he wasn't. She didn't know why. But she curled herself around the fire, closer to him than before, not touching, not yet. But near, the fire crackled once more, and for the first time in years. Zalara closed her eyes without fear. The storm outside still howled, but in the cave, something new had begun. Not trust, not love, not yet, but something close, something powerful, and maybe even more dangerous than death. The cave was still. The fire had burned low, casting soft shadows along the jagged stone walls. Zalara slept with her back against the wall, one hand resting on her clawed spear. But Logan was not sleeping. He sat near the cave's edge, his wrist screen glowing faintly in the dark. He held a small container in his hand, thin vial sealed tight. Inside, it was a drop of blood, Zalara's blood. He hadn't stolen it, not really, earlier. When she had shared the poisoned meat, her hand had brushed against a sharp bone. It had drawn a small scratch. Logan had quietly swabbed the blood when she wasn't looking. Now he needed answers. He uploaded the sample into his portable analyzer. It beeped softly and scanned the data. Line by line, then the screen flickered, and the results appeared. What he saw made his stomach twist. Zalara wasn't just strong. She wasn't just born tough. She was engineered. Her DNA wasn't natural, it was modified, enhanced, reshaped by someone long ago. Her blood carried artificial gene markers, nanite traces, and locked sequences. She was a product, not just a person, made for survival, made for war. Logan leaned back, shocked. He had expected something strange, but not this. Not a living weapon, left behind and forgotten. His mind raced. Who made her? Why? Was she the only one? He looked back at her, still asleep, curled tightly like a guard animal. So fierce, so alone. Did she even know? He thought about waking her, about telling her right now. But something stopped him. She deserved to know. Yes, but not like this. Not when she was peaceful for the first time in years. The next morning, the storm outside had passed. The skies were orange and thick, but the wind had quieted. Zalara woke and stretched. Her muscles coiled and sharp. She looked at Logan and said, "You didn't sleep." He nodded. Had a lot to think about. She raised a brow, sensing something different. In his tone, "Are you leaving?" she asked bluntly. "No," he said, "not yet." She grunted and walked toward the cave's mouth, stepping outside. Logan followed slowly, his thoughts heavy. Outside, the ground was steaming, still wet from the acid rain, but something caught his eye. Two small green sprouts pushing through the dirt. He blinked, amazed. The seeds he planted had survived. Zalara saw it too, and her eyes widened just a little. "I told you they wouldn't grow," she said softly. He smiled. They did anyway. She crouched beside them, touching one with a careful claw. It was fragile, but alive, like something new had started here. "Something real, Zalara," Logan said slowly, his voice lower now. "I need to tell you something." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "I scanned your blood," he admitted. "When you got scratched yesterday, her body tensed immediately. Her eyes narrowed. You what?" "I needed answers," he said. "And what I found. It changes everything." She stood, towering over him, her face darkening. "You took my blood without permission," she growled. "I'm sorry," he said, not stepping back. "But you need to know the truth." She didn't speak, so he continued. "You weren't born like this," he said. "You were made." She froze. "What?" "Your DNA, it's modified," he said. "Artificial, engineered." Someone built your body to survive here. They changed your kind. Zalara's hands clenched, claws digging into the dirt. Her chest rose and fell with quick, shallow breaths. That's a lie, she hissed. No, he said gently. It's not your strength, your immunity. Your claws, none of it is natural. She turned away, pacing like a caged beast. Then, who am I? She shouted suddenly. If I'm not born, if I'm not real, what am I? You're still you, Logan said, no matter who made you. She stopped walking, her back to him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a quiet voice, she whispered, I thought I was a survivor. You are, he said, stepping closer. No, she snapped, turning to him, eyes burning. I'm an experiment, a tool someone threw away. Logan didn't speak. He couldn't erase the truth. But he could stand beside it. You're not alone anymore. He said softly. Zalara looked at him, her eyes filled with something he hadn't seen before, pain, deep, hidden pain that had been buried under years of rage and silence. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down, her shoulders trembling slightly. She didn't cry. Deathworlders didn't cry. But she looked like she wanted to. Everything I believed is gone, she said. Logan knelt beside her, not touching, just near. Then maybe it's time to build something new, he said. Not made in a lab. It's not created by others, just real. You and me. She looked at the small green sprouts growing. Beside them, two fragile lives, born in poisoned soil, surviving anyway. She didn't answer. But she didn't move away either, and that, for now, was enough. The air was too quiet. Not even the acid winds whistled that morning. Zalara stood near the edge of the cliff, her claws resting gently on her hips. Logan stood beside her, visor down, scanning the horizon. Both of them felt it. Something was coming. Logan had repaired his long-range sensor late the night before, to check the area, just to be sure. But what he found froze his blood. 3 ships, inbound, low orbit, no response, silent approach. He knew that tactic well. Bounty hunters. Zalara didn't need a scanner. Her instincts were sharper than any machine. She could smell them in the air. Mercenaries, bloodwalkers, bond traders' filth. She had seen them before. She had killed them before. They're not here for you, she said flatly. They're here for me. Logan checked his weapon module. Frowning, no, he replied. They're here for both of us. The first ship landed with a heavy thud just past the dead ridge. The second followed, its engines roaring before going dead silent. The third hovered, staying in the air like a vulture watching its prey. The planet's red dust rose into the sky like smoke. Then they came. 5 figures, wrapped in steel and bone armor, walked forward. Their weapons glowed with venom green. Energy at the front was a tall female with silver eyes and a mask carved with runes. Target confirmed, she said, voice crackling through her helmet. Capture the asset alive, eliminate the human. Zalara stepped forward without fear. You'll regret coming here, she growled, her voice calm but deadly. One of the bounty hunters laughed. You're just a relic. We've hunted stronger. Logan raised his sidearm, eyes sharp. Then you've never hunted us. They opened fire. Bolts of energy split the air. Slicing through rock and dust, Zalara moved like lightning, spinning through the fire, claws flashing. She tore into the first bounty hunter before he could scream. His blood hissed on the ground like steam. Logan ducked behind a boulder. Firing short, controlled bursts, he wasn't a soldier anymore, but the instincts never died. One shot hit a bounty's knee joint, collapsing him instantly. Another hit his shoulder, spinning him around. Then Zalara finished him with a bone-crushing kick, but they weren't winning. Not yet. The hunters had numbers, armor, and weapons. Made for extermination, Zalara took a hit to the side. Her scales burned and cracked. Logan's shield flickered as a blast struck his chest. He gasped but stood up again. "We fall back," he shouted. Zalara nodded once, clutching her bleeding. Side, they ran, leaping over sharp ridges and sliding into the cave's hidden back entrance. The bounty hunters followed, but slower, cautious. They thought they had cornered their prey, but they had made a mistake. They had entered her cave, inside. Zalara moved like a shadow. She knew every crack, every tunnel. She guided Logan with quick gestures, both of them breathing hard. The cave turned dark, the walls growing tighter. Then she stopped and whispered, "Trap them." Logan placed 2 energy charges at the narrowest part of the tunnel when the first bounty hunter stepped in. Zalara lunged. She slammed him against the wall, claws ripping through his armor. Before his scream ended, Logan hit the detonator. The tunnel exploded behind them, rocks falling, sealing the path. 2 bounty hunters were crushed. The rest were cut off. Silence returned, but this time it was deadly. Zalara dropped to one knee, breathing heavy. Blood leaked from her side, thick and dark. Logan knelt beside her, his hands shaking. "We need to get that wound closed," he said, pulling out his medkit. She didn't resist. Her pride was gone for now. Only pain remained. Logan worked quickly, sealing the wound with foam and stim paste. She winced, but stayed silent. Her claws dug into the dirt, holding her steady. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved me first," he replied. She looked into his eyes, truly looked for the first time. She saw something she hadn't noticed before. He wasn't just strong. He wasn't just brave. He cared. "You could have left," she said softly. "I still can," he replied, "but I won't, outside." The remaining bounty hunters regrouped. They would return, stronger, angrier, more prepared. But so would Zalara and Logan. This wasn't over. Not yet. They were hunted, but they were also Deathworlders, and Deathworlders didn't run. They fought back. Astric smoke still clung to the broken tunnel. The explosion had sealed off part of the cave, but not for long. Logan paced back and forth. Fists clenched, jaw tight. Zalara lay on a stone slab behind him. Wounded but alive, her breathing was shallow and her eyes fluttered with pain. She had lost blood, too much. Logan had patched the wound, but it wasn't enough. She needed time to heal. But time was the one thing they didn't have outside. The last of the bounty hunters were regrouping. He could hear them through the scanner. They were planning to dig through the collapsed tunnel. They were laughing like it was a game. Like taking her was a reward. Logan stared at the fire, and something inside him cracked. He had tried peace. He had tried running. He had tried being smart. Now it was time to stop being human and start being something else. He walked to his pack and pulled out the last of his field gear, a reinforced exoglove, a fusion spike, and a small vial. The vial held something special, something he had sworn to never use unless it was life or death. It was a stimulant serum meant for soldiers, banned after the war. 1 dose could make a man 10 times stronger and destroy his body after he didn't hesitate. He injected it into his arm. Gritting his teeth as fire spread through his veins, his hands trembled, then steadied. His vision sharpened. His heartbeat slowed. Every part of him became focused, deadly, ready. Zalara opened her eyes slightly and saw him suiting up. Her voice was faint. "What are you doing?" Logan looked at her, his eyes now colder, sharper. "Ending this," he said. "No," she whispered, trying to sit up. "You'll die." He knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I don't care," he said. "They came for you. They want to take you like your property, but they don't understand who you are." He paused, his voice shaking. "They don't understand who I am either." He stood and walked toward the back exit of the cave. A narrow path only he could fit through. A shortcut to the surface. To them, outside, the last 3 bounty hunters waited near the wreck of their ship. They had set up camp, confident the fight was over. They talked loudly about her scales, her strength, how much she'd sell for on the black market. One of them joked about chaining her. The others laughed. Then, the wind changed, and Logan appeared. He didn't speak, didn't warn, didn't aim. He moved like a shadow dipped in fire. His first strike shattered a bounty's helmet, cracking it in half. The second hunter raised his weapon, but Logan tackled him, drove him into the ground, and slammed the exoglove into his chest. The pulse shattered his ribs. The last bounty. Hunter backed away, weapon shaking. "You're just a human," he stammered. Logan stepped forward, slow and terrifying. "No," he said, voice dark. "I'm her protector." He swung the fusion spike into the bounty's leg, then ripped the weapon away. The hunter screamed. Crawling, begging, Logan said nothing, not a word. He stood over the broken bodies, panting, blood on his hands. His own arms were shaking. Now, the serum was wearing off. His muscles were tearing inside, but it didn't matter. He had done what he came to do. Far behind, in the cave, Zalora sensed the shift in the air. She sat up slowly, her claws trembling. Something had changed. She could feel it. A few minutes later, Logan returned, covered in dust, wounds, and silence. She looked at him, wide-eyed. You killed them," she whispered. He nodded once, dropped to his knees beside her, and collapsed. She caught him just before he hit the stone floor, her arms wrapped around him, holding him like something fragile. His face was pale, eyes barely. "Open, you're hurt," she said, voice cracking. "So are you," he replied weakly. "Guess we're even." She placed her forehead against his. "No," she said softly. "We're not," for the first time in her life. Zalora felt something she had never known. Not just protection, not just respect, but love. Not the soft kind, the fierce kind, the kind that burns through fire and blood. Just to stand beside someone, the kind that fights and never lets go, outside. The world still spun, still tried to kill them, but inside that cave, surrounded by silence and scars. 2 Deathworlders held on to each other, and for the first time, neither one felt alone. The cave was quiet, too quiet. Zalora sat beside Logan, her clawed hand gently holding his wrist. His skin was cold, his body shaking from the aftershock of the serum. He had risked everything for her. Now she would do the same. She stood slowly, her wounds still burning, but her steps firm. Her claws scraped against the rock walls as she moved. The sun outside was rising, but something was wrong, very wrong, in the sky. A shadow grew large. Another ship, bigger than the others, sleek, black, and marked with glowing red symbols. This wasn't just another bounty crew. This was a collector's ship, the kind that came to claim rare life forms, and Zalora was on their list. A deep voice echoed through the valley, broadcasted by the ship. Subject, X-13. Biological asset detected. Surrender peacefully, or your companion will be terminated. Zalora growled, her eyes blazing. No more cages. She whispered, no more running, no more hiding. She rushed back into the cave, her breath heavy. Logan was barely conscious, but when she touched his face, his eyes opened slightly. "Zalora, what's going on?" She looked him in the eyes and said, "They want me, but they're not taking either of us." He tried to sit up, but his body gave out. "You can't fight alone," he said weakly. She smiled faintly. "I'm not. I'm fighting for both of us." She strapped on her old war armor, rusty but strong. Her claws slid into the metal grooves like they had been waiting for this day. She stepped outside as the ship landed, its ramp lowering slowly. Out came 5 armored guards, taller than Logan, armed with stun lances and suppression fields. At the center was a tall alien with a long, thin face. He wore a black suit with glowing circuitry. "Your property," he said coldly. "Return, and your human lives." Zilara laughed. It was low and cruel. "No one owns me," she snarled, "and no one touches him." Then she moved. Fast. Faster than they could react. Her claws slashed through armor. Sparks flying. One guard fell, his body twitching from her blow. Another tried to use the suppression field. She tore the device off his wrist and crushed it. The leader shouted, "Restrain her." But Zilara was pure fury. A weapon built for war, now unleashed with purpose from the cave entrance. Logan watched, still weak, but he reached into his pack with shaking hands. He pulled out the last remaining energy cell. His blaster was cracked, but still usable. He loaded it slowly, gritting his teeth against the pain, then limped out into the sunlight. He stood beside her, his arm resting against her back. "You're supposed to be resting," she growled. "I'm tired of resting," he replied. "Let's finish this together." The last 3 guards charged at once. Logan fired 2 shots, both hit. Zilara met the last one midair, slamming him into the dirt with a roar. Dust exploded around them. When it cleared, the guards were down, but the leader wasn't finished. He raised a pulse cannon and aimed it straight at Logan. "Step aside," he ordered Zilara. "I only need one of you." She didn't move. She stood in front of Logan, arms spread, eyes burning. "If you want him, you'll have to go through me." The leader didn't hesitate. He fired. Logan pushed her aside just enough. The blast grazed his side and sent him flying. Zilara screamed, not in rage, but in fear. She leaped through the air, claws extended, and landed on the leader with all her weight. She ripped his weapon from his hands and crushed it, then stared down into his terrified eyes. "I am not your subject," she growled. "And he is not your threat. He is my reason." She brought her claw down, and the fight was over. Hours passed, the ship was silent, its systems fried, its crew defeated. Zilara dragged Logan back into the cave. He was alive, barely, but alive. She sat beside him, her hand in his. Outside, the sun broke through the red clouds. Soft light touched the green sprouts still growing in the poisoned dirt. Somehow, they were still alive, still fighting to grow. Just like them, Logan opened his eyes. Again, whispering, "Did we win?" Zilara smiled, her voice soft and warm. "We're still here. That's enough." And from that day forward, they were no longer alone. No longer survivors of dead worlds, but builders of something new to Deathworlders. One bond, one fight, one future.